Welcome back. This is Newslink right here on eNCA. Now, South Africans are thirsty for clean drinking water, but dilapidated infrastructure is making this difficult. It became extremely evident in Hammaskraal, where water was found to be not fit for human consumption. So let's find out what can be done. From Unisa's water resource management expert, Professor Anja du Plessis joins me this morning, and thank you so much for making time for us. Good morning to you. Where did the problems start, Prof, according to your understanding, in as far as maintenance is concerned with our water infrastructure?
Well, it started many decades ago. This warning has been issued by experts as well as researchers that our infrastructure is in a dire state. If we look at what the South African Institute of Civil Engineering, which issued our report card, it mentioned that South Africa's water infrastructure is a D, which means that infrastructure is not coping with normal demand and is poorly maintained. And this is likely to be affecting the public, like we are seeing now. In terms of water supply services and the reliability thereof, this has decreased since 1996, where in some cases more people do not have access to reliable and clean water supply. So some of the causes of this is obviously misappropriation of funds, financial difficulties, loss of skills, and also human capacity. But overall, it is an issue of neglect that we've been experiencing the past 30 years. If we look at the Blue Drop Watch report that was issued, it basically does not paint a pretty picture. Our wastewater treatment works are also dysfunctional, with very few wastewater treatment works actually complying. Then after also the Department of Water and Sanitation issuing non-compliance letters to these stakeholders, only 50% of them actually responded over a year. So there's an immense scale of non-accountability, and also it also found that 11 municipalities within the country doesn't even have any evidence of actually testing their water quality that they supply to the public. Now, that is a scary figure because this is not the auditing report. This is only a watch report. For 11 municipalities to have absolutely no record of water quality monitoring or testing for the drinking water that they supply is majorly concerning. And this should, what happened in Hammaskraal, as well as in other provinces within the country, should come as no surprise that we are currently experiencing waterborne illnesses such as cholera.
Absolutely. I just wonder if the reasons you've just gave are just some of the reasons why South Africa has been classified as a country that is water stressed, Prof?
Yeah, they're basically saying that it is attributed to the lack of skills as well as human capacity, misappropriation of funds, but then also basically non-maintenance of infrastructure. So there has been a total neglect of our water infrastructure over the past 3 decades, and we could see that turning point happened in 2000, 2002, where we started to see some water infrastructure facilities starting to collapse due to not being able to handle the increase in wastewater that's being supplied by our domestic wastewater or industrial wastewater. So it is not a straightforward issue, but we can say that there is basically a systemic collapse, whereby now you're sitting with, you know what the challenges are, you have issued these municipalities and wastewater treatment works or whatever with non-compliance letters, and you're sitting with unaccountability where less than 50% actually even responded to non-compliance letters. These local municipalities are also then expected to implement actual action plans for their sewage works, and only 34% of the corrective action plans has actually been implemented. So this once again shows that there's all talk and no action, whereby reports are being submitted, strategies are being developed. However, the implementation thereof is basically obviously lacking at this point in time.
Yeah, and obviously if nothing drastic in terms of action takes place, because already we can see South Africa's fresh water being under immense pressure, what are the consequences?
Look, the consequences will be that we will be sitting with unreliable water supply or even water shedding or water shortages, unfortunately. We will see that perhaps more waterborne illnesses that is going to happen because of our dilapidated state of infrastructure. The South African Institute of Civil Engineering has warned that if we carry on like this, we will experience a collapse in our water infrastructure, and we can't handle that. We're already sitting with load shedding. It's a lot more difficult to handle or to cope with water shortages because, as you can see, most people bought UPSs, power backups, or solar as an alternative. However, there's no alternative for most people in terms of clean water supply or actually having water access. So we will see major effects on obviously the functioning of our water infrastructure, or our water reticulation system already has water losses now at 50%, which means that 50% of water is already being lost before it even reaches the consumer. So that's another thing that we will be sitting with, whereby our dams are full. However, due to the collapse in infrastructure or poorly maintained, poorly managed, we're going to sit with water shortages like we are experiencing in some areas in Johannesburg and Tshwane.
Prof, at this stage, where are the solutions and how immediate are they? I mean, how urgent are those solutions that you would recommend, especially when it comes to government and allocating budget? I mean, oftentimes we would hear, the advice that consumers are advised to use water sparingly, but we know that there's a lot more that needs to happen than just consumers using water sparingly.
Yes, exactly. So with the no drop report that was issued, 50% of water being lost before it even reaches the consumer, the finger can't be pointed only to the consumer to say that, we are the problem. Yes, we have to be cognizant of our water use. However, we can't just keep on pointing the finger and try to politicize water. That's not going to work. So for us to move forward and to avoid a water crisis in terms of water supply, we need to address physical water losses. 50% is way too high, and it's increasing. We also need to look at our water monitoring systems because we've lost this during the course of the past 2 decades, unfortunately due to finances, but then also overall neglect once again there. So the recommendations in the short term has to be fix the leaks and look at your water monitoring facilities or frameworks so that we know exactly what we're dealing with, so that we can make informed, planned management. At this point in time, most municipalities are just reacting, doing reactive crisis management, which is not going to work. They've now also confirmed that El Nino is on his way, which means that if the intensity thereof hasn't been determined yet. However, that will be another problem whereby we are going to sit with high temperatures, lower rainfall, which will obviously affect the state of our dams and water resources. So in terms of actions that needs to take place is there has to be accountability and transparency from all stakeholders involved and civil society, but then also relevant stakeholders such as private companies also need to place continued pressure so that we can obtain clear, transparent answers and make sure that there's some kind of accountability so that consumers can make informed decisions in an attempt to protect their own health. So in terms of what communities can do, I would say that people need to heed to issued warnings, boil water before using it for consumption or cooking purposes, to decrease the risk of waterborne illnesses. So it's not a straightforward issue, which is going to be solved overnight. We need short, medium, and long-term interventions and a clear action plan. It's all well and good that we're issuing these plans and also these reports. However, we need to start implementing and taking action. Otherwise, we're going to sit with an even bigger issue that we're sitting with now.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for speaking to us about this water management and water quality expert, Professor Anja du Plessis from Unisa. Thank you so much, painting that very bleak picture for us. Concerning, though, is that if drastic action is not taken, this issue could worsen and have very dire, if not fatal, implications for you and I. Thank you so much, Prof. Anja du Plessis, for your time.